You're listening to the Save the Date podcast, where we talk all things weddings, jewellery and romance. With love from Cullen Jewellery.
Hello and welcome back to the Save the Date podcast. I'm Sheridan.
And I'm Juliette, and we are so happy you're here.
Today, we're going to give you a list of 20 things that are very commonly forgotten about when wedding planning. So these are some things that might not be mentioned on your typical wedding planning lists, but they are still very important to ensure your day runs as smoothly as possible.
So sit back, relax, and let's get straight into the episode.
So first up, we have your marriage license. Now, in most places, especially in Australia, I know that it's definitely in the US as well, you actually need to apply for your marriage license at least a couple of months before the wedding actually takes place, and it needs to be approved, which can take like around a month to get back. So you want to make sure that you're doing this like at least a few months before the wedding. You you don't want to rock up on your wedding day and not have either anything to sign or find out that your wedding is actually not
legally
legal.
Binding.
That did happen actually. I'm pretty sure that happened to my brother.
Stop.
I don't know what it was. I think there was a spelling mistake on something and like his middle name was spelt incorrectly. So this is also a side note to make sure that everything is spelt correctly. So they signed it on the day.
Yeah.
But like according to the government, the day of their wedding is not actually
legal.
The day that they got legally married because they had to get everything
Redone.
Damn.
Yes, you definitely want to avoid that. So best to just check with your local government and see what requirements they have, see how long it's going to take because, as we said at the start, it can be different from country to country and place to place.
Yeah.
So, make sure you get that sorted I can't speak today. Make sure you get that sorted very early on so then you know exactly when you have to, or the very latest you have to apply for that and organise it.
And if you're super unsure like who to ask about it, start with your celebrant or your officiant because most of the time they'll know the process, whether or not, I know that some in Australia will do all of that kind of behind the scenes stuff for you. So they'll be there. They'll hand you all the paperwork that you need to sign and then they'll send everything off to get it legally bound. But if they don't do that, at the very least, they'll know exactly who you need to talk to, what forms to fill out. So, if you're unsure, check with your celebrant first.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next thing is including yourself in the guest count. Now, why is this important? It's important for catering and the venue to know because you're obviously, you're paying per head, but also they make the meals per head. So you have to make sure that you and your partner are included in that count and it's not just your guests that you're inviting. Yeah,
the last thing that you want is like for you and you and your partner to not have a meal.
Miss out on a meal.
Or two of your guests because
you haven't counted correctly.
You haven't counted everybody.
Yes.
Definitely a very important one. And also include your vendors in that too. Generally, your venue will have like a separate kind of section for any vendor meals. But in case they don't, make sure that your photographer, videographer, if you have one, anyone that's going to be there for like an extended period of time and over the dinner kind of period, make sure that they have a meal as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This next one is to make sure you ask your witnesses to be your witnesses.
Organise that.
Organise your witnesses. So make sure you ask them first because how awkward would it be if on the day they said, nope, I don't want to do that. Unless they're obviously a very trusted person that you know they're not going to say no. And in most places you will need two witnesses. Some, I'm pretty sure your celebrant can be your witness, but just double check that as well, how many signatures you actually need on your wedding certificate.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, even though it's glamorized with the whole wedding aspect, it's a legal document those are actual legal things you have to abide by. So it's a very glamorous legal document, but the witnesses and all of that more technical stuff is actually really important.
Yeah. I know that I think it's Colorado. There's a state in the US that you can have your dog like witness your marriage. So like they just use their paw print.
Oh my God, that is so cute.
Which is like literally the cutest thing ever.
Could you imagine?
If that was
so
allowed
funny.
here, I think I definitely would have said to Harrison,
Done.
Daisy is going to be witnessing our marriage.
Oh, I love that. That's so funny.
Yeah. But typically, I think like most common, your witnesses would be your best man and your maid of honor, or whoever it is that you have like as your main person in your bridal party. But it doesn't have to be that. So don't feel like they have to be that person. You might pick someone that you kind of wanted to be included in the wedding, but you didn't have necessarily a spot for them. Or we like didn't have a bridal party, so we didn't ask beforehand and surprised our sisters by asking them to do it on the day. But yeah, you can literally ask anyone. I'm pretty sure I've seen people will do, and same with like ring bearers and stuff. They'll have like, oh, check under your seats, and like whoever is sitting in this spot,
that's
they
cute.
can like be the witness, or they'll pull names out of a hat, or like little things like that. That can just like make it a little bit more fun if you want to kind of hide the more boring legal side of things.
Yeah. Make your guests feel a bit more included, or find a way to include them or make it fun for them.
Yeah. I've seen like some funny things of people who have been like surprise ring bearers and stuff, and they're like in the comments it'll be like, oh, imagine if this is just some random +1 that
that's what I was just thinking. I was like,
time.
maybe you want to limit that selection process to the first 2 front rows,
because
that's where your immediate family typically sits. Because yes, you don't want some random +1 being your witness.
Oh dear. Next up is your getting ready outfit. So obviously, for starters, you don't want to forget your getting ready outfit on the day, because you want to get your nice photos taken in it. But be mindful with this outfit that it is easy to get off. So nothing with like a tight neckline, because you will be taking it off after you've had your hair and makeup done. And
it needs
getting something tight around your neck off and not ruining your hair and makeup is like almost impossible. So, just try and have something that is like either loose fitting or button up.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like stress about needing 3 people there just to hold it
up. On that same note, I'm going to also add that with tight clothing, be mindful with what your wedding dress is showing, because I know this is more a thing with bra straps. They can leave the indent on your skin, and it can take a couple hours for them to just naturally go away. I know sock lines is another thing.
And also, I always usually wear a hair tie around my wrist.
Hair ties on wrist. Because again, it's just that like when you've slept on your sheets too hard and it leaves that indent on your skin, and like normal day-to-day life, you don't actually notice how much time it takes for that to go away. Yeah. But it can actually be, an hour or so. And if you're taking it off 30 minutes before the ceremony, it's still going to be there for photos. Yeah. So definitely keep that in mind as well when you're getting ready beforehand. I think typically, I think they usually say just try and avoid it completely.
For the whole morning.
Yeah, for the whole morning. Like take all that stuff off the night before and then don't put it back on until the next day.
Yeah, that can even go for like rings as well. Because I know I think traditionally you either don't wear your engagement ring or like you wear it on the other hand or something. And I know I get like a bit of an indent from my rings on my finger. So that's another thing that like if you obviously, I don't know if you really have photos of your hands being taken necessarily before the wedding, but take off any rings or try not to get tan lines from rings or from watches. I stopped wearing my watch like 6 months before the wedding. Yeah. And I still had a line. It was faint, but it was still there.
And I feel like those things show up way more in photos. For some reason. So that's the other thing. Like again, like with the indents on your skin and stuff, like for some reason, even those show up way more on photos. So
yeah, 100%. I saw a TikTok the other day of a girl. She wasn't like in the wedding, but she was going to a wedding, and she had really bad tan lines from her like fitness watch, and she was trying to fake tan it away.
No.
It was like her and a few other people like trying to just really gently
just in the lines, color it in.
Tan on. It turned out okay, but you don't want to have to worry about that.
Another thing you want to look into or even just think about beforehand is venue restrictions, because this can vary depending on how you want to decorate and from venue to venue as well. Some venues won't allow things like candles, sparklers, confetti. Sometimes they'll have limitations of when your vendors can actually enter the space to set up. And if you've got some really elaborate flower setup that's going to take a few hours and maybe needs to be done the day before, some venues might be like, no, you can only have the space from 9 a.m. the day of the wedding, and then your vendors are going to be like, we need more time than that. No. So yeah, definitely something to think about and also inquire about.
Yeah. And also, like, some venues won't allow you to put anything like on walls, or I know I've seen a lot lately of like floral arrangements hanging from ceilings and stuff like that. Some venues might not allow you to even do that at all. So it's one of those things that kind of makes wedding planning quite tricky, is that you need to have somewhat of a vision of how you want the overall look of the day to be when you're booking that first thing, which is generally your venue.
Yep.
And that's why it can get quite overwhelming and like tough. So if you try and find a venue that has the least possible restrictions on what you can do, then at least that way you have that freedom throughout the whole planning process of like being able to add things in.
Yep. And do exactly what you want.
Yep. Next up is silverware. So this is like plates, cutlery, napkins, anything like that. Some venues don't provide this, depending on kind of where you're having your wedding. If you are just purely hiring out a venue that is just kind of a room and you get the space, but they're not doing any of the catering themselves, chances are they won't have those kind of silverware things for you to use on the day. And your caterer might not provide it either. So it might be something that you need to then go out and source yourself, whether you rent it or purchase it. I don't know if you really want to purchase 100
plates,
100 plus sets of plates and cutlery. But yeah, it's definitely something that you need to consider. I know it's very popular at the moment to have like really nice and elaborate napkins, and like they're folded really prettily and all of that kind of thing. And that's generally not something that your venue will do, even if they do have napkins that you can use. Whether you need to have like a stylist or someone come in and do that, or if you're going to DIY it. But yeah, just make sure you know kind of what the go is around that.
Yeah, and I guess on that same note too, if you do need to hire your silverware because it's not supplied by the venue or the caterer, who's setting that up?
Yeah.
Because again, like there's no guarantee you'll be allowed into the venue space the day before for you to do it yourself. So yeah, who's going to be the one doing that on the morning of? Like, could you coordinate with your caterers, even though they're not supplying the cutlery? Can they be the ones setting up all the seating placements? So yeah, that's something else, I guess, to think about too.
Another thing that you really want to consider is having a backup plan in case it's raining or if it's like boiling hot. This is mainly if you are having your ceremony outdoors. Obviously, if you're already indoors, it doesn't really matter. But it's like really common that people will say have a backup plan in case it's raining. But if it's like in a 45 degrees Celsius day, you probably don't want to be
super common here in Australia.
Yeah, you probably don't want to be like standing outside for a 30 to 40 minute ceremony, and your guests as well will probably not want to be standing outside. So even if it's like there's a shady option that like your ceremony can just be kind of moved into the shade, or
and hand out fans.
Moved indoors, hand out
like
fans. Umbrellas, raincoats.
Yeah. I've been to my cousin's wedding was on a really hot day in Adelaide, and Adelaide gets even warmer than here in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I was in like a cute little kind of mini dress, cocktail dress, and I was dying. I don't know how the men were doing it in suits.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd be on the floor passed out if I was you. It was so hot, but yeah, they managed to get like a fan and stuff, so it was okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think even if you're having an outdoor wedding, trying to make sure that there is a shady area just for your guests to kind of hang out, even if it's not going to be really hot. But say it's like a 25-degree day, which is relatively mild, but the sun's out, that can still be like blaring hot.
Yeah.
So if you've got a shady spot that your guests can kind of hang out in when they first arrive and then only be in the sun for the ceremony, it might not be so bad.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Okay, next thing, songs for each big moment of the day. So there is actually quite a few moments where you might want a special song playing, and like there are, I guess, the main ones that people know of, like the first dance, walking down the aisle, all that kind of stuff. But do you want a particular song playing while you're signing your marriage certificate? Do you want a particular song in the background when you're cutting the cake, entering the reception? All these kind of more smaller moments, I guess, that are still big moments or significant time points throughout the night is just, going through all of those. And you might not want a particular, or you might not care what song's playing, but if you do, something to think about.
Yeah, I think like even if you are not super like fussed about what song is playing, the last thing you want is for like that to be the one moment where the DJ plays a song that you absolutely hate.
Yes. So at the very least, maybe you can just write up some songs that you don't want.
Yeah.
If you don't necessarily care for a particular song.
Yeah. Or even just like giving them a list of like 10 or 15 songs that you're like, during those like special moments, these are the songs that we like. Just pick one that you think suits the vibe of what's happening, and your DJ will be able to do that then as well. Next up is transportation to and from the venue. So it's pretty common, like you generally know exactly how you're getting to the venue, especially, if you're hiring a limo or a fancy car or something like that, but make sure you know how you're getting back from the venue, because this can sometimes just like kind of get forgotten, especially if you're not doing like an after party after the reception. If you're after the reception going back to your hotel or back to your house or something like that, please don't try and rely on an Uber. Because you don't want to be like standing outside your venue waiting for an Uber for 15 minutes and then they cancel. And
or if you've got a big dress, trying to shove that into the back of an Uber.
And all your guests are trying to get Ubers and taxis and things like that. It's just, very tricky. So just, try and figure out how you actually are going to get out of your venue at the end of the night as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, next we have a cake serving kit. So a lot of venues don't actually include this, and you have to bring your own. So there may be additional charges around serving your cake, and this also may be a hidden cost at the venue. So definitely ask about that. Ask if they include a serving kit, and just, I guess be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's super common that like your venue won't include cake cutting and serving in their base cost. So definitely make sure that you check that. And even if they do, they still might not have like a nice cake cutting set that you want to use for that cake cutting. How many times can we say cake cutting in the podcast moment, like photo moment, where you want to be using something nice, potentially.
Or if you've got a really massive cake, they might not have a knife long enough. You need one of those really long, skinny knives, I feel like, which very niche.
I mean, you can always just not cut through the whole
thing.
Day, but
just
cut the little
tiny
corner
little
off.
tip.
Good to still keep it in mind.
Yes.
The next one is to make sure that you have pens or Sharpies or anything to sign the guest book. It's like probably not going to be something that you'll forget to bring the guest book, but you don't really want people to get there and not have a pen and everyone's fishing around in their handbags trying to find something to use to sign. So by a few, I would say, don't try and just have one there, because I'm always ending up accidentally taking pens from places that that I've just borrowed because I think that it's mine. So yeah, bring a few pens or like something nice.
Yeah, to sign.
To have for your guests to sign.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next, reserve seats for your family members. So I guess this is more of a thing at the actual ceremony rather than reception. Typically, most people do a seating chart for the reception. But at the ceremony, I guess seats aren't really reserved, or it's not as common to have reserved seats. So if you want to make sure there's absolutely a seat for all of your immediate family members, or even if you've got like grandparents who definitely need a seat, or maybe you've got someone in your family who's pregnant and you know they'll need a seat, making sure you've got those reserved for them. Again, this might just be you kind of like reserving the first 2 rows where these people can sit down, or you might not necessarily have to go to the trouble of individually naming these seats unless there's only a few people. But yeah, you can definitely reserve either the first couple rows or the couple back rows. It's something to think about.
Yeah. Especially like the last thing you want is the person that's walking you down the aisle doesn't have a seat.
Yes.
And then they have to like make people move, or they're ending up like 4 aisles back. So
which is usually the father of the bride.
Yeah.
Which would be quite sad.
Yeah. And also if you are having your bridal party, like you plan to have your bridal party sit down throughout some of the ceremony, make sure that they have plenty of seats to do so as well.
Because
you don't really necessarily want them scattered.
No. It would also just look a little messy too if your bridal party has to then
find a seat.
Yeah, or have to go a couple rows back to get a seat and then have to go in and out of the aisle.
Yeah.
Something to consider.
The next thing is to remember to eat. It is very common to forget to eat anything on your wedding day. Thinking back, I don't think I ate lunch.
Yeah.
We had like planned out breakfast and then kind of forgot about lunch because everything is just, there's so much happening that eating is like one of the first things, at least for me, that I always forget if I'm super busy. And on your wedding day, it's just like heightened times 1,000.
Yeah.
So have someone that is in charge of like organizing either food to be delivered to the house that you're getting ready at, or to come in the morning with, a whole bunch of food, make platters, things like that you can kind of snack on throughout the day. And make sure that you have lunch organized. Yep. I know like a lot of the times I'll see brides and they're having breakfast in the morning, but then between that like 10 a.m. that you have breakfast and your 4 p.m. ceremony, make sure you're still having something in between then. And drink lots of water.
Yeah.
You have to like stand throughout most of your ceremony typically. And if you're dehydrated and it's a hot day, you really don't want to risk passing out.
Yeah. And if you feel like, oh, no, there's not enough time to go have lunch, or like it's just not going to work with like where you're at. I've actually seen a few people, and it's super cute. They actually go to a really kind of aesthetic restaurant or cafe after the ceremony, and they weave that into their wedding photos. So they get like really cute photos of them like feeding each other lunch, like pasta, like that kind of old Italian vibe. And so it's like they then have a proper lunch, get fed, but like it's also being doubled up as part of their wedding photos.
That's really
if they're a bit time sensitive.
Yeah. Or even like if you are if you're going to be going to your venue like before your wedding, some venues will like have you there in like a bridal suite or something like that. Get like Macca's. Yeah. Macca's drive-through on the way there, and like just have some chips or something.
Yeah. Just something.
Just, anything small.
Okay, the next important thing to think about is what time is the sun setting on that particular day, because this can affect your ceremony time as well as your portraits, reception timeline. Your photographer will most likely want to take you away for sunset pictures, and you don't want this to clash with anything else on the night. I guess being prepared for that and, allowing for it and weaving it in.
Yeah, weave it into your timeline as much as you can. For the most part, like, you can literally see what time sunset is, like, down to the minute.
Yeah.
So just have the conversation with, like, your venue and your photographer to see generally how long before sunset they actually like to take you. And then that way you can make sure that for, say, 45 or half an hour or so before sunset, you have that time to just go and get those photos taken if that's something you want to do.
Yeah.
The next thing that you need to consider is where everything is actually going at the end of the night. So a lot of the time, your venue won't allow you to kind of leave anything there overnight and pick it up the next day. You'll have to take it all with you after the reception. So make sure you know and you organize who is doing this, where it's going. You want to make sure that whoever you kind of assign this task to will have enough space for everything, like in their car, whether it's like you assign it to 3 people to make sure they have enough space, because it will take up a lot of space in the car. Even if they have like a big like 4-drive or ute or something like that, chances are you'll need to.
Yeah. And I would also recommend assigning this task to someone who's reliable.
Yeah.
Because if you've assigned this to whoever and they've had a couple drinks and then they
Now
forgot to leave things. Yeah,
Or,
they're getting an Uber. They've forgotten half the stuff. You could get charged for this.
Yeah.
And 1, you could get charged by the venue because you've left a bunch of stuff there. But then 2, if this is stuff you've hired and then you can't get a hold of it anymore, you could also get charged.
Yeah.
So definitely assign this to, someone you know is very reliable and is actually going to make sure that happens at the end of the night.
And write them a list too. So while you're like booking everything in that's going to be arriving at the venue or that you're going to be taking to the venue, put that on a list so that you can give that to this person and then they know exactly what it is they need to take. Because in some cases, like, we had our venue supplied some things. So like if we didn't tell anyone, they probably would have started taking like all the table like decorations that the venue provided, and that's not theirs to take. And then again, you would get charged for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another thing you have to think about is what's happening with the leftover cake. So it's super common, or it's a super common tradition to save part of your wedding cake and put it in the freezer for your first anniversary. So do you want to do this? Who's taking it home? Because if you and your partner are going back to a hotel, I don't think they really have freezers in hotel rooms.
Usually
They've got
not.
fridges, but you don't really want to be putting it in a fridge for a couple of days, then bringing it and putting it in the freezer.
Yeah.
You want to be putting it in the freezer straight away.
Yeah.
Again, I guess having someone who's reliable who can be in charge of that and make sure that's all going to go smoothly and well.
Yeah, and someone who's like going directly home where they can put it into the freezer. Because especially like if you and your partner take it and then you're going to a hotel and then you're going on your honeymoon and then like it's
not
just
going to work.
Not going to work and you'll end up with moldy.
Yes.
Moldy cake.
Not good.
I don't like that tradition, by the way.
No?
No, it really grosses me
out.
out.
Well, see, with this tradition, because I know it's with Italians, it's the top layer of the cake is a fruit cake.
Yeah.
So that also has longer life naturally than
yeah.
a sponge cake, and it freezes a lot better. So I don't know if that's necessarily where it started, this tradition, or if there's other cultures who do a similar thing. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of like, I know in my family that's what people do, and it's a lot more pleasant to eat a year later.
Yeah, okay.
After it's been frozen, rather than a frozen sponge cake.
A bit better. I can see like a fruit cake.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense because we had like a what was it, like a white chocolate mud cake kind of thing, and like the last thing
it doesn't really freeze well
to do is like put that in the freezer.
Yeah, so all the kind of fancy flavors and stuff I don't think freezes that well, whereas traditionally, or at least in the Italian is fruitcake, which does freeze well.
Okay.
And naturally does last a lot longer because it's so high in sugar or something. Anyway. Okay, next thing, pack an emergency kit. So things in this are like a little toothbrush, Band-Aids, deodorant, makeup wipes, cotton buds, one of those like little eraser things that help with stains.
Yeah, like the stain erasers.
Oh, yes, stain erasers, eyelash glue, little things like that maybe one of your bridesmaids can hold on to throughout the day. Just any little touch-up you may need throughout the day, at least you've got something that can help you.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned eyelash glue.
Yeah.
The best thing to use eyelash glue for on your wedding day, obviously if you have lashes that peel off, like yes, but put it on the back of your necklaces, and then that way it'll just like tack your necklace onto your neck, because you know how necklaces always spin around. You end up with like the clasp thing sitting at the front and it's not really where you want it. You can just use eyelash glue to glue it at the back, and then that way your necklace is going to stay in the perfect position. And also like if you have a little gem or something on there, you could just put a little bit of eyelash glue on that as well, so it stays like in the one spot facing in the right way.
Yeah.
The next thing that you want to make sure you do is to pack an overnight bag. This is obviously especially important if you're spending the wedding night at a different location than you spent the night before the wedding. But that is another thing that can just be really easily forgotten or left behind, that you want to make sure you bring that to the venue with you, so you don't have to be like running around trying to go and pick something up, or not having like something to change into and out of the wedding dress or things like that.
Yeah, definitely important. Okay, our second last thing that we don't want to forget is bring a spare pair of shoes just in case. Yep. So no matter how comfortable you think your wedding shoes may be, or even if you've broken them in quite a lot, after wearing them for 12 hours, that may change.
Yeah.
So yeah, just pack some really comfortable flats that are still really cute, still maybe like little white ballet flats or something, so it still matches your outfit, just so you have something else just in case. Even if it's just for at the very, very end of the night when you're leaving the venue. I don't know if you're going to be maybe, just tying up a few things at the very end of the night where your guests are leaving, and you just got to do a couple things with the venue and you have to walk around a little bit. It'll be a lot more comfortable for you to be in flats, and even getting in your transport for wherever you're going, same thing. If you just want to put on some flat shoes, at least you have the option.
Especially like, I know that I can wear heels for a while, but as soon as I sit down, if I try and get back up, like it's game over.
Yeah.
So it might literally be needed for that drive in the like car back to your hotel, so that you're not like hobbling into your hotel room.
Can be very handy.
Yeah. And then the final thing to think about is your phone. So who is going to be holding your phone on the wedding day? Where will it be? I had no idea where my phone was for the whole time of my wedding. I think I left it in one of our like bridal suite rooms before the ceremony, and I didn't see it again until I think we got back to the hotel, which is like a good thing. But at the same time, you might want to like take some selfies and things like that throughout the night. So yeah, just like make sure you know kind of where it's at, who's got it, but you don't want to be carrying it around all night. Just assign it to one of your bridesmaids or someone in the bridal party, and then they can like snap pictures and stuff for you as well. Yeah. And then make sure, just in case, you have a phone charger with you. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Save the Date podcast. We hope you learned something new, and if you're currently planning a wedding, congratulations, good luck, and have fun.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you follow or subscribe and leave us a review wherever it is that you're listening.
Make sure to come and connect with us on our socials at the Save the Date podcast, and join our Facebook group, the Save the Date community. We hope you have a wonderful day or night, and we'll be back with another episode next week. Bye.
Bye.